The Public Service Alliance of Canada is updating the latest on negotiations on behalf of roughly 155,000 workers now in a strike position. Let's listen in.
For the past 2 weeks, we've been at the table night and day for our 120,000 Treasury Board members, trying to reach a fair deal. It hasn't been easy, and we're not there yet. I'll now hand it over to Chris Aylward, PSAC's National President, who will provide an update on the state of negotiations.
Thank you, Sharon. We've made some progress at each of our 4 bargaining tables over the past 2 weeks, but we're still too far apart on several key issues, including wages that keeps up with the cost of living, job security, and remote work language. There are also still several outstanding table-specific issues to be addressed. We are committed to remaining at the table for our 120,000 Treasury Board members, and today, our 35,000 members working at the Canada Revenue Agency will resume negotiations. These workers, like all workers, deserve fair and decent working conditions. Despite some progress at the bargaining table, our members are frustrated that while negotiations drag on, they continue to fall behind. We've already been at the table for nearly 2 years, and these workers can't wait any longer. That's why we're setting a clock on this round of bargaining. If there is no deal reached by 9 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, April 18th, I am authorizing a national general strike beginning at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, April 19th, for all 155,000 PSAC members working for both the Canada Revenue Agency and Treasury Board. I will now turn it over to Yvonne Barrière, PSAC's Regional Executive Vice President for Quebec, to deliver the statement in French.
Merci, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Over the last 2 weeks, we have made progress at each of our negotiations, but we are still far to coming to an agreement on the main issues. We're talking about pay, job security, remote work, as well as specific points that have to do with certain points for each of the groups. We will continue to negotiate this week. We will negotiate on behalf of our over 100,000 members. Today, our 35,000 members from the CRA are going back to the bargaining table. What we are seeking are decent working conditions, pay that takes the cost of living into account. These are the core of our demands, and we hope that it's what all workers deserve. Our members are frustrated that negotiations are dragging on while their buying power is drastically reduced. It has been 2 years that we've been negotiating, and that's ridiculous. We can wait no longer. That's why now we are launching a new tool. If there's no agreement by 9 p.m. tomorrow, April 18th, the National President will authorize our 155,000 members to go on general strike as of midnight on April 19th. Thank you. If you have any questions in French, we will be pleased to answer them.
Thank you, Yvonne. We'll now take any questions you may have. I'll start in the room here. Chris.
Hi there, Chris Nardi from the National Post. So you said there's been some advances, but not quite on the crucial points. What headway have you made? And well, I'll start with that. What headway have you made?
Well, we made some headway. I'm not going to bargain. We're currently at the table. I'm not going to start bargaining in the media. We made some headway on some of the issues, but we have made very little progress on our key priority issues.
And so I presume if you're still at the table, the offer, the new mandate that TDS brought for wages wasn't reckon, insulting? It wasn't bad enough that you would pull away from the table, but it's not where you want to be now. Is that it?
We've always said from day one, we need wages for our members that will keep up with inflation.
So have you, Catherine May, Policy Options, so have you actually had a wage offer?
We've had several wage offers over the last couple of weeks. None that keep up with the rate of inflation.
And so they've improved their original? Have they offered you the 10.5 they've offered other unions? Have they offered you the PIC? What have they done?
We've seen the PIC wages. That's what we've seen. That's the latest. And as I've said, we've always maintained and will continue to maintain that we need to see a decent wage for our members that keeps up with the rate of inflation. That's what workers in this country deserve. Workers in this country are fed up, they're frustrated. Our members are no different.
So you haven't seen an offer of the 10.5 offered to other unions?
No.
Would you be happy with that?
It's not up to me. It's up to our individual bargaining teams. Our bargaining teams are duly elected by their respective members.
And can I ask, what's your sticking point at the other tables? Besides, like, what are big ones that could get in the way if you got exactly what you wanted pay-wise? Like, what are those big sticking points?
So some of the issues are around when we look at, especially our operational services table. Some of our tradespeople, our firefighters, our HPs, when we look at what they're making and what the private sector is making, it's not comparable. The workers in those classifications in the federal public service make considerably less than what private sector employees make, doing the same jobs.
Cormac McSweeney with City News. How has the mood been at the table in negotiations with the federal government this time around?
It's becoming very frustrating. That's why we're basically putting a clock on this round of bargaining now and setting a deadline of 9 o'clock tomorrow night, because from what we've seen, there's no need for this to drag out anymore. Basically, we've been there for almost 2 years. That's why we're putting that clock on, because our members are getting extremely frustrated, and rightfully so.
And on the critical issues that you're talking about, like wages, is it that the government's not budging at all, or just budging a little bit and not enough in your eyes? And then also, I know that you were asked last news conference, but can you tell, for Canadians who are watching right now, how will they notice this in their everyday lives? What services will be impacted that they won't have access to if you go on strike at 12:01 Wednesday?
Certainly, some services will be shut down. Some services will be delayed. There will be certainly delays in applications around, passport, immigration applications, employment insurance applications. There will certainly be a slowdown there. Our imports and exports may be affected as well. So that will obviously, impact the economy. And anything arriving, or coming in or leaving the country by air, rail, or marine may be affected as well.
Kate McKenna, CBC News. Just given the size of your union and the potential leverage that you have, and the fact that a lot of other people are dealing with an inflationary crunch with their wages, what kind of precedent are you hoping to set, or is that something that's on your mind at all?
Absolutely, it is on our mind, because when the federal government represses its wages for its own employees, what they're doing is repressing wages for workers right across the country. Unionized workers, non-unionized workers, private sector, public sector. And we're saying that's wrong. And we're asking the government to come to the table and set that bar for all working people in this country to make sure that no workers get left behind. Workers are fed up. We watch corporations make record profits, but yet nobody wants to pay working people. It's time for workers in this country to stand up and stand with us and say enough is enough and push back. Because as I said, when this government tries to repress the wages of its own workers, what they're doing is repressing the wages for all workers. This government has said they believe in workers. Well, if that's true, come to the table and demonstrate that, so that no worker in this country is left behind. Workers didn't cause inflation. We shouldn't have the burden that that responsibility.
Just quickly, the NDP is propping up this government, right? What expectation do you have from them, given that they're traditionally a very pro-labor organization, if the topic of back-to-work legislation comes up?
Certainly, we know we have the support of the NDP party. We know that. And, if this government, who is committed to introducing anti-scab legislation before the end of this year, then I hope they're not real quick on the trigger on back-to-work legislation. Again, if you believe what the federal minister of labor said, Seamus O'Regan, that this government believes in workers, then if you believe in workers, then allow us the right to strike and don't legislate us back to work.
Bonjour, Patrick Foucault, Radio-Canada, en français, s'il vous plaît. Monsieur Barrière, j'aimerais vous entendre d'abord sur l'état
I would like to
d'esprit
hear
au moment où on
about
se parle,
the state
autour
of
des tables de
mind at
négociation
this
et
time
votre
around
niveau
the bargaining
d'optimisme
table.
par rapport à la possibilité d'obtenir un résultat.
And what about the possibility of seeing a positive outcome? We could say that the bargaining teams are tired. They're tired because it seems the Treasury Board is not being as respectful with them. Quite often, the TB has said that we will come back to the table with an answer, but they delay on that. However, there has been some headway around the bargaining table over the last 2 weeks. We've seen a little more in the last 2 weeks than in the last 2 years previously. I'm optimistic, but this is perhaps the fourth or fifth bargaining session with the Treasury Board. I'm very optimistic, but very cautious. The Treasury Board will have to come to the table, and we are expecting that today. About pay and wage increases. It was said that inflation will eventually calm down. And one of the solutions to come back to better inflation is to moderate wages. So what do you think about that? I think that we are justified. We have to recall that in the first year, or we've had no increase since June 2021. Our members have reduced buying power currently. At the Bank of Canada press conference, they didn't mention corporation profits, only salaries and wages. So wages and benefits of federal public servants are lower than before the cuts. So at this moment, it's justified to ask that we continue to have wage increases that are fair. Just to repeat, to mention the impacts on the rest of the population if the strike is called. I'd like to recall that we do not want to take Canadians hostage. We have agreed that essential workers will stay on the job. There will be a minimum amount of service, but there is going to be a risk of delays, such as at employment insurance, customer service. There will be longer wait times over the phone. Do we want to strike? Absolutely not. But what we want is the Treasury Board to come and bargain with us.
Vous dites que, Daniel Leblanc du Journal Le Droit, vous dites que depuis 2 semaines, on n'a jamais négocié autant que dans les 2 dernières années. On semble comprendre que ça a bougé dans les derniers jours.
So we're to understand that in the last few days, things are moving forward. How do you explain now that there's a deadline of 48 hours if things are moving forward? What's forced you to say that that's going to be tomorrow night? That's based on the situation that the TB is asking for concessions that are too strong. So we will activate that right. But I must stress that we've been bargaining since July 2021 without stop. We've put on the table our offers and we are waiting. Our members have not had a pay increase since June 2021, so this is what we have to do. This is an old practice that has been used by the TB over the last 3 bargaining sessions to draw things out. About strike pay, I don't know if you have a figure to put out there. Some people are saying that you are negotiating because the cost of living is increasing, but it's increasing for everyone. On the other hand, some people will say it's going to be difficult to go on strike with a certain number of people.
We're getting an update from the Public Service Alliance of Canada, updating their negotiations with the federal government on behalf of their 155,000 workers. They are warning that if no deal is reached by 9 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, April 18th, they are authorizing a national general strike beginning at 12:01 a.m. on April 19th. They say that they're still too far apart on many issues. They're committed to remaining at the bargaining table, but will resume negotiations, but are threatening strike action as of tomorrow.